Ever wonder what the biggest threats to wild animals are? It's a question that piques our curiosity and calls us to think deeper about the world around us. Today, we'll be exploring this through a countdown format, starting from the least significant threat and working our way up to the most severe. Each threat holds its own unique implications for our wild friends, and understanding them can be the first step to making a difference. So, without further ado, let's dive into the countdown. Starting our countdown at number 10, we have climate change. This pervasive threat is altering the very fabric of life for wild animals across the globe. The shift in climatic conditions is changing the natural habitats of animals, making it harder for them to survive. Take polar bears, for instance. As Arctic ice melts due to rising temperatures, their hunting and breeding grounds are disappearing. Then, there are the coral reefs, vibrant ecosystems that are home to countless marine species. These underwater forests are bleaching and dying off as ocean temperatures rise and become more acidic. And let's not forget about migratory birds. Changes in weather patterns are disrupting their migration routes and breeding seasons, leading to population declines. Despite being last on our list, climate change is a serious threat that shouldn't be underestimated. It's an insidious enemy, impacting every corner of the world and every species that calls this planet home. At number 9, we have pollution. A silent killer, pollution wreaks havoc on wild animals in various ways. From toxic chemicals seeping into rivers, poisoning fish and aquatic life, to plastic debris choking turtles and seabirds, pollution is a pervasive threat that doesn't discriminate. Air pollution too plays a destructive role. It can cause respiratory issues in birds, leading to a decline in their population. And let's not forget about light pollution. It disrupts the natural rhythms and behaviors of nocturnal animals, leading to confusion and increased vulnerability to predators. Some species are particularly sensitive to pollution. For instance, frogs and other amphibians with their permeable skin are like living barometers for the health of our environment. When pollutants infiltrate their habitats, they're among the first to suffer. Sadly, pollution is a widespread problem that affects countless species. It's a menace that we, as the inhabitants of this planet, need to tackle head-on. Pollution is a widespread problem that affects countless species. Coming in at number 8 is overfishing. Our oceans are teeming with life, but this life is under threat. Overfishing is a relentless predator that targets fish populations faster than they can reproduce. This imbalance disrupts the entire marine ecosystem. Take for instance the Atlantic bluefin tuna, an apex predator in the ocean. This majestic creature can grow up to 10 feet long and weigh as much as 1,500 pounds. But their numbers are dwindling due to overfishing. When these top predators are removed, it causes a ripple effect down the food chain, affecting countless species. And it's not just the tuna. Sharks, cod, and many other species are also vulnerable to overfishing. These animals play crucial roles in maintaining the health and balance of their ecosystems. So, what can we do? We can support sustainable fishing practices and policies that protect marine life. Because every creature in the ocean plays a part in the symphony of life. Overfishing is a major threat to the biodiversity of our oceans. At number 7, we have habitat destruction. This is a significant concern for wild animals as it directly impacts their survival. Imagine your home being torn down with nowhere else to go, no shelter from the elements, no protection from predators. This is the reality for many animals when their habitats are destroyed. Deforestation, urban development, and agriculture are just a few human activities that are causing widespread habitat destruction. These actions are not only reducing the total area where animals can live, but they're also fragmenting the remaining spaces, making it harder for animals to find mates and food. Take, for example, the orangutans of Borneo and Sumatra. These primates are particularly vulnerable to habitat destruction due to deforestation for palm oil plantations. Their forest homes are being razed, leaving them with nowhere to go. Habitat destruction is a critical issue that affects animals all over the world. It's not just about losing homes, it's about losing lives. Coming in at number 6 is invasive species. Now, what are these, you might ask? Invasive species are non-native organisms that, when introduced into an ecosystem, can cause harm to the local wildlife. They do so by outcompeting native species for resources, predating on them, or introducing unfamiliar diseases. Let's take the example of the Burmese python in the Everglades. Originally from Southeast Asia, this reptile has established itself in Florida, where it preys on local wildlife, including endangered species. Similarly, the European rabbit, introduced in Australia, has caused significant damage to native plant species by overgrazing, leading to soil erosion and habitat loss for native animals. But remember, it's not just about big, menacing creatures. Tiny organisms like the zebra mussel, native to Eastern Europe, have colonized waters in North America and Europe, affecting local aquatic life. Invasive species pose a significant threat to native species and ecosystems. It's a global problem that requires our attention. At number 5, we have disease. A silent but deadly threat. Disease can be a natural part of any ecosystem, but its impact on wild animals has been amplified by human activities. With the encroachment of human civilization into previously untouched habitats, new pathogens are being introduced, leading to devastating outbreaks among wildlife. Take, for instance, the Tasmanian devil. This unique marsupial is being ravaged by a transmissible facial tumor disease, a plight that has seen their numbers dwindle alarmingly. Or consider the amphibians, particularly frogs, who are being decimated by a fungal disease called chytridiomycosis. This disease, spreading rapidly due to global trade and climate change, is causing mass die-offs and pushing many species towards extinction. While some species have natural defenses or can recover over time, others are not so fortunate. Diseases, especially those facilitated by human intrusion, can decimate populations and even lead to extinctions. So, let's not underestimate the destructive potential of this invisible enemy. Disease can decimate populations and even lead to extinctions. Coming in at number 4 is hunting and poaching. This threat is as direct as it gets. Hunting and poaching are activities that lead to a sharp decline in animal populations, especially those that are already vulnerable. These activities are often driven by greed, with the illegal wildlife trade fueling the demand for rare animal parts. Let's take the African elephant as an example. These gentle giants are hunted for their ivory tusks, leading to a drastic drop in their population. Similarly, the rhinoceros, known for its iconic horn, is another victim of poaching, pushing them to the brink of extinction. And it's not just the large animals that are affected. Many species of birds, reptiles, and even insects are targeted for their unique traits and supposed medicinal properties. The sad truth is, hunting and poaching are causing irreversible damage to our planet's biodiversity. Hunting and poaching pose a direct threat to many species. At number 3, we have wildlife trade. It's a grim reality that many of our beloved creatures face, as they are captured and sold, their lives commodified for human gain. This trade, often illegal, puts a significant strain on wildlife populations, disrupting ecosystems and pushing many species towards the brink of extinction. Let's take, for instance, the pangolin, an unassuming insect-eating mammal. It bears the unfortunate title of the most trafficked mammal in the world. Its scales are in high demand for traditional medicine and its meat considered a delicacy. Similarly, African elephants are poached at alarming rates for their ivory tusks, while exotic birds are captured for the pet trade. But it's not just about the animals taken, it's also about the ones left behind. Families are torn apart, social structures crumbled, and the balance of the ecosystem is disrupted. The wildlife trade is a multi-billion-dollar industry that devastates wildlife populations. It's a threat that we cannot afford to ignore. Coming in at number 2 is human-wildlife conflict. This is a significant threat to wild animals across the globe, and it's one that's growing as our human population continues to expand. When our living spaces encroach on theirs, it's the wildlife that often pays the price. From elephants trampling crops in Africa to bears rummaging through trash cans in North America, these conflicts can lead to injuries or even death for the animals involved. And it's not just the large, charismatic animals that are affected. Smaller creatures like birds and amphibians can also fall victim to these clashes, as their habitats are destroyed or disturbed. Certain species are particularly vulnerable to human-wildlife conflict. For instance, the majestic tiger, already on the brink of extinction, faces additional threats as expanding human settlements fragment its habitat, leading to more frequent and deadly encounters. Human-wildlife conflict is a growing issue as human populations expand, but it's important to remember it's not just the wildlife that suffers. These conflicts can have profound effects on human communities as well. And the number one biggest threat to wild animals is loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, and it's essential for maintaining the balance of ecosystems. When biodiversity is lost, ecosystems can collapse, causing a ripple effect that can lead to the extinction of animal species. For instance, let's consider the bees. These tiny creatures play a key role in pollination, and without them, many plants wouldn't be able to reproduce. This would have severe consequences for the animals that rely on these plants for food, shelter, and other resources. Similarly, the Grevy's zebra, found in Kenya and Ethiopia, is on the brink of extinction due to loss of its grassland habitat to agriculture. As their habitat shrinks, their food sources dwindle, making survival increasingly difficult. So, it's clear that the loss of biodiversity doesn't just affect individual species, but it disrupts entire ecosystems. Loss of biodiversity is the most significant threat to wild animals. So there you have it, the top 10 threats to wild animals. From the ever-looming menace of climate change, the insidious spread of pollution, to the tragic loss of biodiversity, we've covered a lot of ground today. But remember, each of us has the power to make a difference. Small actions can have big impacts when we all work together. Remember, every action counts in preserving the world's wildlife. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more insightful videos.